I'm Bob Bozarth. I'm running for Lewis County Commissioner District 2. I was born and raised in Lewis County, and I've raised four of my children, and I have 6 grandchildren. I've been a business owner here for over half of my life, and my roots are deep in Lewis County. I plan on spending out the rest of my lifetime right here. I love Lewis County. But I see some issues coming down the road that my wife and I have had lots of discussions about. And I did a lot of praying to God before I decided to enter this campaign. As a business owner, I see more regulations coming at us all the time. And a lot of them are coming from the state and the federal level. So when I challenge some of my representation in Lewis County, I get the same answers. We agree with you, Bob, but it's state mandate. It's federal mandate. And my question is this. As a human, I think it's very easy for us to take the path of least resistance and just simply comply. But I'm going to go back to my question. When are we going to stand? Are we going to wait until we're slaves to the state of Washington? Is the state of Washington going to wait until it becomes slaves to the federal government? And is the federal government going to wait until it becomes slaves to the United Nations? Because literally that's where we're headed. And if we don't stand up now, before too much longer, there won't be a reason to have a county government. And we can't afford to lose it. And I think I'm the only candidate that is willing to take it on. So that's mainly why I'm running. I'm running for my grandchildren.
Excellent. Well, we'll start with the first question, and I think you know the topic. We'll start with Discover Lewis County. So, estimates in the community on the cost of the tourism site have ranged from the county's claim of right around $150,000 or less, up to the claims of others of up to $500,000. Our records request hasn't been fulfilled yet. Do you support it as a government expenditure, though, and how much of the public's money do you think is appropriate to spend on it each year?
Well, I don't think it's appropriate to spend any public money on Discover Lewis County. I think it's a worthwhile program. I'm not condemning the program. I think it's a useful tool. But it don't belong in the public arena. It belongs in the private sector. I really seriously think a very good place to put that would be the Chamber of Commerce. I think they're more well equipped to handle it. And government does not need to be in the business of picking winners and losers. And that's exactly what Discover Lewis County has been doing. And I guess I don't know of anything more I can say about that.
Fair enough. Next question. In the past several years, the county has had tenuous relationships with a lot of other governments. We saw it with the city of Chehalis and the Port of Chehalis on the urban growth area, with the Port of Centralia on Centralia Station, and with the Chamber of Commerce and others on Discover Lewis County. What would you do to smooth over these relations, and why do you think they became rocky to begin with?
Well, I think leadership plays a big role in that. And I think sometimes we allow our personal feelings and that sort of stuff to get in the way of making good decisions. That's where leadership comes in. Leadership needs to get everybody's eye on the same end result and get everybody on the same page going the same direction and mitigate all those little personal problems and personality issues that people tend to get into. And it's just human nature. That's what we do. So we all do it. But that's where leadership needs to step in and help move us through those situations. And our main goal in Lewis County is to be the best we can be for Lewis County and make this county the most business-friendly county in the state. We need to lead the way. and show the rest of the counties in the state of Washington just exactly how we can get a county back on track and make it more productive. And we've got every reason to believe that we can accomplish that mission right here in Lewis County.
Great. You're seeking to replace Commissioner Bill Schulte. How well do you think he performed the duties of the office looking from the outside in? And how would your approach be different?
Well, I'll tell you, I consider Bill Schulte a good friend of mine. I would say about 95% of the time, Commissioner Schulte and I were in agreement. It was that 5% of the time that I decided to run against him on. But it's nothing personal. I mean, I've got different ways of doing things than he did. There was some issues that he was in favor of that I was absolutely opposed to. And, you know, it really wasn't about Bill Schulte at all. It was about what I just said earlier. I've got different ideas about how we need to take our county back and put it back under local control. And that's going to be one of my main focuses, is beat back on bureaucracy.
Excellent. This is an issue that I think you have a different take on than the other candidates. So of the alternatives presented for flooding by the Department of Ecology's report that's being considered right now, which do you support and why?
At this stage of the game, I don't support any of them. And I'll tell you why. I've got more questions than answers. But having said that, the option 4, where we're wanting to move farmlands up on top of hills, I'm a little irritated at the director of that department that allowed that study to continue for more than 5 minutes. That was a complete waste of our money as taxpayers. As far as the other options go, the one that seems to be most popular is putting a dam up above PL. One of my questions on this is, what kind of dam are we going to put up there? We have two choices. We have a full-time year-round reservoir dam, and we have pretty much a flood control dam. Another question I have is, to the best of my knowledge, there's been no geological studies done in the area where they're putting that dam. And I'm a contractor and I know a little bit about this kind of thing. So they project it to be anywhere from 500 million to 600 million. And I don't know where they're getting their numbers from. If you don't know how you don't know how you're going to put those footings in until you know what kind of material you're working with. So somebody's going to have to go up there and do some core drilling before. That's the first thing that needs to be done. The other questions I have is, I don't think this decision lies with the Board of County Commissioners in Lewis County. Ultimately, what's going to happen is it's going to go to the state legislature. It's going to have to go through the House, and it's going to have to go through the Senate, or vice versa, whoever initiates the bill. After that, it's going to need to be signed by the governor. At this stage of the game, we don't know who that governor is going to be. But let's just say it all goes smooth as glass. The best I've heard from anybody is that the Quinaults are only becoming more friendly to the idea. Nobody's told me yet that they're on board with this doggone thing. So, let's take them out of the equation for a minute. There are thousands of special interest groups all over the United States that don't like dams. I don't happen to be one of them. Don't mistake that. But I don't want to put our citizens in a situation where this could go into litigation for several years after we think we've made a decision. And I see that as a realistic possibility. And I don't want to end up in a situation like they've got in Seattle with Big Bertha. And this is very possible with a project this size. So my last question is, let's say we get past all that. Who's going to be responsible for maintaining this thing on an annual basis? Who's going to pay that bill? So there's a lot of things like that that are on the table that I have a lot of questions about. As far as flood control in Lewis County, absolutely. I'm in favor of mitigating flood control in a realistic and common sense approach. And I don't for the life of me understand why we've taken dredging off the table. I know that one concern was, well, if we start dredging the river up here, we're going to flood the people in the lower end. Well, how about this? How about if we start dredging at the lower end and work our way upstream? Just a thought.
Excellent, thank you. Next question is, based on your knowledge and perhaps even if you've read our coverage of it, do you believe the recent hiring process for a 911 manager was appropriately conducted, despite a lack of input from Centralia and Chehalis and no mention of the dispatcher's vote of no confidence in the interview process?
Well, that's a good question. You know, I'd like to go backwards just a little bit on that to kind of emphasize what I said in my opening statement. One of the reasons we're talking about the communication center is because of the federal communications federal agency. We had wideband in Lewis County for years and years and years, which worked extremely well. The FCC, and I'm sure they had good reasons, but they forced Lewis County into going narrowband. That's when we started losing our radio signals and having our dead spot problems. And so then there's been some talk about going digital, and the State Patrol went digital. The State Patrol has found that digital isn't exactly the best way to go either. First of all, it's extremely expensive, and they're not even getting the coverage out of digital that we used to get out of wideband. So it's a really convoluted and a very, very expensive process, particularly when you start going digital on this doggone thing. As far as the personnel situations, I have heard, most what I've heard of is conjecture and rumor. And I think what we got to do is put that in the past. We've got a new manager at the communications center. I have spoke with him. I like what I heard from the guy. And I think his heart's in the right place. And I think we, as a community, Chehalis, Centralia, district, all the fire districts, the sheriff's department need to now get behind this guy and help him move this situation forward.
Thank you. Next question. The News Tribune reported over the weekend actually that a marijuana business took a $1 million investment to another county due to the continued moratorium. Did the county miss an opportunity in this case and other similar cases by not allowing them to open and insisting on an unattainable federal permit? Fun one?
Oh my, am I glad you brought that up. Because I've got some real wild thoughts going through my head. First of all, like I said before, I'm a Christian. And I'm not a real big fan of marijuana. Having said that, and I know we've got some serious issues right down along State Street. I think we got 4 or 5 places down there that they're literally out there with billboards advertising, come and get your dope here. On the other hand, the state of Washington did pass an initiative, and you know, I think the county commissioners probably made as good a decision as they could at this stage of the game. They didn't wildly jump into this doggone thing. And they did leave that caveat that, yeah, go ahead and do it. You're busting federal law. So, I don't know that I can give you a good answer on this one, because I don't know if I have a good answer wrapped up in my own brain yet, so that's the best I can do.
Fair enough. If elected, what would you be able to do during your first couple years in office to help spark or otherwise improve economic development in
Okay.
Lewis County?
Alrighty. Here's the deal with our economic development. What I foresee is, first of all, we're going to have to put our farmers and our loggers back to work. It's the roots of Lewis County. That's what Lewis County was built on. And we used to be one of the most wealthiest counties in the United States. We had more millionaires right here in Lewis County per capita than just about any place in the United States. And that's when our logging days were just roaring. And we made some mistakes back in the early years. I mean, we were a little rough on the environment, but we learned our lessons and we learned how to log responsibly. And now we've got, once again, in Lewis County, the BLM, they control 29% of our timber in Lewis County. DNR has over 100,000 acres. We only get 1% of our timber harvest off of BLM managed lands. And DNR just announced, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, that they're wanting to take another 10% to 24% out of our timber production because of the marbled burlette. And I personally don't believe there's any science behind it, because they don't even know what the thing does after it goes back out to sea. So there's an area where we're going to have to start pushing back. We need to put our lands back under federal control. Or excuse me, I did not mean back under local control. And there's ways that other states have did this. And I've been in this arena for quite some time, working with Coalition of Western States, the American Lands Council, and numerous other groups that have been concentrating on this for years. And I think we're just about ready to break pay dirt. I really do. This don't affect just Lewis County. This affects the western states. So that's one thing we can do. The other thing that we can do is we can start by making Lewis County the most business-friendly county in the state. And one of the ways we can do that is we can make ourselves a lot more attractive in our permit processes and streamline the building permit process. Sometimes we don't always have to go after charging people more money to get permits. Sometimes it's a better path to charge people less money to get permits. Sometimes it's a better path to reduce taxes overall in Lewis County. There's a lot of big ticket items that are sold in Lewis County. We know for a fact that a lot of people drive clear down to Portland to avoid sales tax. Even though they should report that to the state, I'm kind of doubtful that most of them do. So if we could drop our sales tax perhaps in Lewis County, just as an example, it would entice people from Thurston County, Cowlitz County, to do business in Lewis County, and it might be more profitable for our county to reduce our taxes as opposed to continually go back to the public and ask for more money to facilitate government.
Excellent. I'll tell you just ahead of time, we have one more question for you, and then we're going to give you some time to close.
Okay.
So this final question is, does your opponent have a specific weakness that makes you a better candidate for the position?
Well, honestly, I'm not running against Bobby Jackson. I'm running for the position of Lewis County Commissioner. So I'm going to leave it right there.
Okay, fair enough. So this is your opportunity. You have about 3 or 4 minutes where you can just kind of make a final plea to the voters just on what makes you the best candidate for this position and anything else you wanted to talk about. Close it out.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd really like to thank you guys for putting this on. It does give us a chance, all the candidates, to try to get our message out there. Yeah, I'm gonna start out with telling you, there is probably a lot more qualified people in Lewis County for the position of commissioner than I am. There's no doubt in my mind. Unfortunately, none of those people signed up for the campaign. And I have been involved in politics ever since my mom and my dad put me at the kitchen table. And it was just a topic of conversation literally every night at the kitchen table. If we weren't talking about politics, we were talking about religion. And I have been a member of numerous organizations, numerous groups throughout the years, with all the same purpose in mind, to do the best we can for the citizens of our country. Like I said, I think my heart's in the right place. I'm not the best at public speaking, and I've got a lot of weaknesses. There's no doubt about that. But I'm the kind of guy that once I get something in my head that I want to get accomplished, I'm not going to fall down on the job. I'm going to see it through. And I really don't like losing too good. But you know, particularly when it affects the next generations. So all I can tell you is I promise to be as tenacious as I can possibly be in trying to resolve some of the problems that we have in Lewis County. And I'm going to tell you something else. We're always going to have our storms. It's just the facts. But we've all got to remember this too. In Lewis County, we have far more blessings than we do have burdens. And at the end of every storm, there's a rainbow. I thank you for your time, and I'm going to ask you to support me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That'll do.